Hey everybody, welcome to the GMG review. Today we're taking a look at Warhammer 40,000 Kill Team in 2024. This is the Hivestorm Dossier review. Now this was kindly sent along as a complimentary review copy by Games Workshop and is the almost like Codex in Warhammer 40,000 terms for the new Vespid Stingwings and the Tempestor Aquilons, which is the two new kill teams that are featured in the Hivestorm box set. So if you're planning on buying this new edition of the game, the 2024 edition, this is going to be the rules for those two teams. It is just the rules for those two teams. In previous editions of this game, what people might have expected to have also in here was additional things like tactical operations, ways of scoring points during the game, as well as spec ops, which are sort of narratively driven RPG story-wise things that you could do with your kill teams. Those no longer exist in this book. So if you are looking for the tac ops and ways of playing the game, you can check out the separate review for Approved Ops, the card pack. It's effectively the Warhammer 40,000 Leviathan card deck, except for Kill Team, and includes both terrain setups, the tac ops for the primary game, and ways of scoring. If you're looking for the core rules for the game, they are in the core book here, although there are no spec ops rules. Those have been removed or potentially put into a separate game. And then the other half of what you're going to get in here is the story of the battle for Volcus. A world of Stygian darkness and fiery illumination, a place of sprawling cityplexes and nightmarish industrial wastes. It's like a 2024 Necromunda, basically. And is of course what the terrain in this box set is featuring. So this is our stuff here. You do get some additional missions. These are story missions for playing through the sort of like, I guess, word drop troops themed stuff, but they are head-to-head missions, and there is no additional content for joint ops in here. So these are story-wise, you know, neat. Like they give you what the two teams are doing here and a way of playing through narratively, but there's no sort of like RPG elements. You just play through the games in order, and it tells the story that you're going to play, kind of like watching a movie. So what we've got here is, of course, the backgrounds for the two teams. The Void Flare, which is, man, these poor bugs. There's a real like hint that these guys do not know what they're doing, and they've just been given guns by the Tau, and that's reflected in the rules too. And then, of course, the Militarum Tempestus having their orphan brigade of scions who are given guns and trained to love the Emperor better than everybody else. Some cool color sections and color schemes in here as well for both teams, and then a bit of narrative stuff. So the Stingwings and the background for the Tempestus Scions get a color section too. All right, let's get into kill team rules. So this is the actual rules for the two kill teams, and if you want to understand a bit more what that means core rules wise, you can check out the review of this book today, where we'll go through like what the stat cards and stuff mean, the core mechanics, and any minor changes that happen between editions. Now, the one thing that you don't get in this box set is you don't get cards. The other kill teams that are going up for pre-order have card sets that include all of this information sort of on a data card. If you're going to be playing with these two kill teams, you're playing directly out of this book. I don't know if Workshop's releasing separate card decks for these two teams. It'd be very handy if they did. It might come out later on, but right now you'll need to actually flip through the book to play. It does make it a bit awkward for playing the two teams against each other, although there is a QR code for scanning and finding the most recent if there's any updates, rules for these. So we'll go through the two teams quickly and talk about their sort of like highlights of what they do. There is a lot more streamlining here because this takes out obviously the tac ops rules. There's no additional ways to score points for these two kill teams. You get your first page, which is your recognition guide for the miniatures themselves. Then Tempestor. I will give you one word of warning. I've been painting both these teams. The Vespid Stingwing team you can perfectly build with the max amount of options. The Tempestus Aquilon kill team though, there is a loadout option that precludes you from making one of the specialists. So be careful if you make this actual miniature, this Tempestor Scion with a hotshot las pistol and power weapon. There is only one right-handed hotshot power las pistol in this box, and it means you cannot make the gunner miniature, this guy right here. Those are the same las pistol. You can't make both these miniatures out of the sprue. You need to use a different arm. I used the pointing arm in order to make the power weapon Scion Tempestor. because I also wanted to make the gunfighter, and you can't make the gunfighter if you make that loadout specifically with the las pistol and power weapon. So this team is going to have 10 models in it. You're dropping one of your troopers if you're going to take this guy, the Servo Sentry, and boy howdy would you always take the Servo Sentry. It's made up of a Tempestor, which is your leader. He's got a hotshot las pistol or power weapon. Again, that's the loadout you need to be careful about making if you're going to make the gunfighter. A relic bolt pistol and chainsword, a hotshot las carbine and fists. I don't know why you'd ever make that one. It's just getting you another trooper, really. And then 9 Tempestor's Aquilons taken from the following list. Now, anyone with an asterisk, you can take a maximum of 3 of total. So you're getting a gunner, a marksman, and a servo sentry. I just built those 3. I built the plasma gunner, the servo sentry, and then the sniper, because the long las marksman is pretty cool. I also get a Grenadier and a Gunfighter. Grenadier is effectively just a dude with a pistol, but he has unlimited grenades. The Gunfighter has 2 pistols, and he can shoot back when someone shoots him. And then you get your basic precursor troopers and your Servo Sentry, which has got 3 different weapon options, a flamer, a grenade launcher, and a hotshot volley gun. I built mine with the grenade launcher because it's really cool. And then the troopers themselves. So the precursor is your stabber. They get a melee attack, which is really great, and they can apply 2 melee dice. And the last but not least, last bit of information is the archetypes you can pick from. For your attack ops, you can do recon or seek and destroy. All right, special rules. These guys have 2 sets of special rules. The first one's drop insertion. So drop insertion is kind of a game-long special rule for turns 2 and 3 during the game. When you first are deploying your miniatures, setting up your operatives, you can put a third of them down, rounding up, and then the final 2/3 you can set up in drop, which means whenever a third of them goes down, you get to place a drop marker. So you get 2 drop markers effectively, and there's 2 included in the sprue or the cardboard set here of tokens. They have to be placed in your kill zone, and every turn as a gambit during the strategy phase, you can move a marker 4 inches. Now, when you go to activate a model that's not on the table, you can do a drop with it as an action. That counts as its reposition for the turn, and you can place it within 3 of your drop markers, any distance vertically and 3 inches horizontally in the drop zone. But it can't be placed within control range of an enemy operative unless you're setting up the precursor with his knife. He can just drop right on top of somebody. With no part of its base underneath vantage terrain, so you can't be under the lip of something. You have to be able to come straight down, and with an order of your choice, so either in engaging or in whatchamacallit, stealth, the other one, crouching or standing, basically. The operative is treated as performing the reposition action already and spends AP accordingly, and then continues its activation as normal. It's obscured until the end of its next activation or end of the turning point, whichever comes first. So anytime you shoot at it, it counts as being obscured. I actually missed that in the Let's Play, but it means that you can only, because it's dropping in and surprising people, you can't get crits against it, and you can only apply, you get 1 less dice when you're shooting at it. When readying operatives during the 2nd and 3rd turning points, remove 1 of your drop markers. This means operatives still set up are incapacitated at the end of the 2nd turning point. So yeah, remove a drop marker. You only get 1 at the end of turn 3. So basically, at turn 4, they can't come in anymore because your markers are all gone. And whenever grab shoot, whenever a friendly Tempest Aquilon operative is dropping, ignore the vertical distance. So you can run or jump 4 inches and then just drop any amount of distance. It means that your grab shoot takes the fall, and you don't count that distance when it comes to your move. All right, you're gonna get 4 strategic and 4 firefight ploys. Your game long ones are the strategic ones, or sorry, turn or round long ones. So you get sudden offensive. Half of your remaining troopers who are active and aren't incapacitated give you X number of rerolls, so X number of balanced weapon rolls. So basically, the first X number of models to activate, so up to half your non-incapacitated kill team models, get balanced on their shots. The idea being that they're surprising you when they show up. Maintain momentum. Whenever you're shooting someone that's not exhausted, so someone who's ready, you get severe. So one of your misses, or so if you have no crits in your roll, one of your hits becomes a crit. Eye above, select 1 enemy operative. That operative and all other operatives in 3 gain a detected token until the end of the turning point. And whenever an enemy operative has a detective token, it's shooting friendly Tempest Aquilon operative, you can reroll 1 of your defense dice. And is fighting or retaliating, 1 of your blocks can be allocated to block 2 unresolved hits. So you get your servo skulls to like call people out. It makes the opponent worse. And then drop and secure. Select a marker on the table. Whenever determining control of that marker, your APL stat counts as 1 higher. And whenever a friendly Tempest Aquilon is within 3 of the marker, add 1 of the attack of its melee weapons. So you can make them, like, you can pick a marker basically you really want to try and take and make yourself better at fighting against it. And then your turn long ones, firefight ploys, you get hot drop. Use this Firefly ploy after rolling attack dice for a friendly Aquilon operative that's landed during its turn. If the target's within 6, you can reroll any of your attack dice. So basically, you can pick somebody out to fight that's, you know, close range and then reroll your shots against them. Adjust coordinates. Use this Firefly ploy when a friendly Tempestor's Aquilon operative lands. You can set up within 5 of one of your drop markers, measuring horizontal distance only, taking precedence over the normal distance requirement, but it cannot perform dash, fight, or shoot actions during the turning point. Basically, you push a little extra harder. It's almost like a dash on your drop, but it means you can't do anything except for really push a button. And then Tempestor's Exemplars. Use this Firefly ploy during a friendly Tempestor's Aquilon operative's activation, except for the Servo Sentry. And any operative with an APL stat greater than 2, so your leader can't do it. And during that activation, it can perform pickup marker, place marker, or mission action for less than 1, for 1 less AP, so for 0 typically. And then my last one, this is my favorite one, Progena. Just do drugs. Regain 2d3 lost wounds. And during your activation, you can ignore any changes to your APL stats. If you're stunned, you get to ignore it. Use this Firefly ploy when a friendly operative is activated, but the Servo Sentry can't do it, obviously, because he can't take drugs. It's like your silver mouth spray for the war boys in Mad Max. And then we get our stat cards for the Tempestor, Gunfighter, Grenadier, Gunner, Marksman, Precursor, and Servo Sentry. So everyone's based on the Aquilon Trooper here. They get a 2 APL, 6 move, 4+ save, and 8 wounds. All the specialists get an extra wound for the most part. Sorry, not the specialists. All the leaders get an extra wound for the most part. The specialists have the same stat line. The troopers themselves get a special nobody else gets, though, which is rapid insertion. In the as a gambit in the strategy phase, each friendly Tempestor's Aquilon trooper operative wholly within your drop zone can immediately perform a free reposition, but must finish that action within 3 of your drop zone. So I really think this is cool. Basically, if you showed up next to the drop marker in your zone during the strategy phase, you can all push slightly out before the turn starts. And then Swift Landing. Whenever this operative lands, you can set up within 4 of a drop marker, taking precedence over the normal one. So the basic troopers are a bit better at landing than everybody else. Then we've got our specialist and our Tempestor. So the leader, he's got 3 APL and an extra wound. His loadouts are these are all the same as in the previous edition, right? Las Carbine is basically a hot shot. It's almost a bolter. So 4 shots on 3s, 3/4 damage. Last pistol is the same except range is 8. Relic Bolt Pistol has lethal 5+ in range 8 and additional damage. And then your Chainsword is 4 attacks, 3+, 4/5 damage. Your Fists are 3 attacks, 3+, 2/3 damage. Although everyone's Fists in this list have an ability with equipment to get changed. And then your Power Weapon is 4 attacks, 3+, 4/6 damage, and lethal 5+. He's a Tempestor's veteran, so once per battle, you can use his Firefight ploy for 0 CP, if this is this operative you're using it on. And then you can use the command reroll as well for 0 CP, as long as it's attack or defense dice. And then support, you can give one of your APL to another Tempestor's Aquilon model that's not the Servo Sentry, because you can shout at them to fight good, because you're the boss and you're in charge. Then you get your Grenadier. He is just armed with a las pistol and fists, as opposed to having the hotshot las carbine, but he's also got a Melt-A-Bomb, range 3, devastating 3, heavy, so you can only reposition once, but you can't dash, limited 1 and piercing 2. And then your attacks is 4 attacks at 3+, 5/3 damage, but because it's got devastating 3, all your crits turn into basically 6 damage. And then Grenadier, this operative can use frag, crack, smoke, and stun grenades in the universal equipment deck, which is reprinted in here. You'll notice there's no universal equipment in the core book. They weren't in the review for that. They're actually printed in this book, which we'll talk about at the end. So you do actually really need this book to play the game. So if you're planning on playing the new edition, you're not going to know what the universal equipment does without this, or any of the other card decks actually that come through here. So you're going to need one of those to play the game. And of course, all those models are also included in this box set. But you can use frag, crack, smoke, and stun grenades in unlimited amount. And whenever your operative is using a frag or crack grenade, improve the hit stats on it by 1. So if you hit on 4s, you hit on 3s normally. This guy's just really good at throwing baseballs. Your Gunfighter, he's got a neat ability. He's got 2 ways of firing his hotshot las pistols. So either focused, 4 attacks on 3s, 3/4, with ceaseless and rending. So ceaseless means that you get to reroll all of one type of dice roll. And then rending is one of your misses becomes a crit, I believe, if you don't get any crits. Or one of your crits becomes a hit. It's one of those 2. I can't remember which one rending is. I know severe is the one where one of your hits becomes a crit. Rending is QRS. Rending. If you retain any crits, you can retain one of your normal successes as a crit instead. So if you get any crits, one of your other hits becomes a crit. Kind of an upped version of the whatchamacallit rule, the severe rule. And then you can also salvo, so you can fire a salvo, which is select 2 valid targets, shoot this weapon against each of them in any order of your choice. You do dualies. You do dually pistols at somebody. And then hotshot last pistols can be used in melee point blank with ceaseless as well, with 4 attacks, 3+, 3/4 damage. And then you have gunfight. Whenever an enemy operates within 8 of this operative and shoots at them, keep track of all of its discarded dice that fail. After the action, before incapacitated operatives are removed, including this one, if they die, this operative can perform a free shoot action and change its order to engage to if it needs to do so, but can only target that enemy operative with its hotshot last pistols unfocused. You can only roll a number of attack dice equal to the discarded dice. So if you get shot with like a high dice thing and they miss a whole bunch, you get to shoot back, which is very fun, even if you die, because you quick draw on them. Your gunner can have he's just a trooper, but with a plasma carbine or melta carbine. The melta carbine's 4 attacks, 3+, 6/3 damage with devastating 4 and piercing 2. So you only roll 1 defense dice against it, but it's only got a range of 6 inches. So you just completely nuke somebody. And remember, you can drop into the table to do that. And then plasma carbine can be standard or supercharged. It's always piercing 1, but the base damage goes from 4 to 5 if you supercharge it, and it gets lethal 5+ and hot. Other than that, it's 4 shots on 3s. The marksman. So this is interesting. A lot of sniper rifles used to be silent. A lot of them now gain something called concealed position instead. So as the first time you fire it, it's silent. After that, like for the game, after that, it uses its mobile or stationary stat line. So the operative can only use this weapon the first time it's performing the shoot action during the battle. So after you've fired, you're no longer silent. You can't fire to conceal. You have to be engaging. And then Sniper's Vantage, whenever this operative is on a Vantage train and is shooting an operative that has an engage order and is at least 2 inches lower, it gets the severe rule. So not just balanced from being above and shooting down at someone with engage, you're also going to get severe, which means one of your hits turns into crit if you don't get any crits. Your Precursor, with his knife fight, is going to get a Tempestor's Dagger. It's lethal 5+ with 4 attacks, 3+, 3/4 damage. You get Vicious Knife Fighter as your special rule. Whenever you're assigning your first damage dice, you can assign an additional one right afterwards. So you could do 8 damage if you get 2 crits and assign them back to back. It means that anyone with 7 or less wounds, you can just stab to death in melee. You're like a throat cutter. And then Dynamic, whenever you perform a fight or shoot action, you can perform a free dash action afterwards. It can do so even if it charged, but it can only use any unused charge movement. So if you charged 4 inches, you could dash up to 3 inches afterwards. If you charge 7 inches, you'd only get an additional inch of movement afterwards, which means you get back in cover or engage somebody else. And then we get the Servo Sentry. This is our last one. He's got 10 wounds and a 3+8 because he's a robot. And only a 4-inch move instead of a 6-inch move because he's got little teeny tiny little like steppy legs. His Flamer is a Flamer, 8-inch range saturate, which means no cover saves or retain dice for cover. Torrent 2 inches, you attack everything within 2 inches of the primary target. 4 shots, 2+, 3/3 damage. And then it's Frag and Crack Grenade Launcher, which is what I took on mine. 4 shots, 4+, 2/4 blast 2 inches if it's the frag, and then piercing 1, 4/5 damage if it's crack. Hotshot Volley Gun's kind of a similar thing where it's getting more dice on a focused fire, so 5 dice, 4s, 3/4 damage with piercing crits. So if you get a crit, then you become piercing. And then Sweeping is Torrent 1 with only 4 shots, 3/4 damage and piercing crits as well. I liked the Grenade Launcher the best. Lower base damage, but bigger blast, and the piercing hit is super dangerous. And then we get into our equipment. So now what's really interesting, these 2 pages might be my favorite pages in this entire book. There's a faction equipment set, and for both of these kill teams, the faction equipment is really, really good. Almost like, why would you take the universal equipment good? Tempestor's Daggers, your whole team's punch attack, they get their little like orphan knives that they got given at the orphanarium, and ups their attacks to 3, 4+, 3/4 damage. Cool, for 1 equipment point. You get 4 equipment slots over the course of the game. Although, if you're playing with the other kill teams, you might actually use universal equipment. That's just great. It's a whole team upgrade for one of your equipment slots. Combat stims, your movement never goes down for being injured. Whole team, again. So you never lose 2 inches of movement for being below half health. Drop Augury and Remote Overseer are both once per battle, but can be super handy. Once during the battle, when a friendly Tempestor's Aquilon operative is set up above is activated, before expending or landing that operative, you can move one of your drop markers again. However, it can't be moved close to your opponent's drop zone, so you can move it laterally up and down, but not ahead towards the drop zone. And then Remote Overseer, once during the battle, reroll the initiative dice to see who goes first. Again, super duper handy if you really need that drop to go off. There's an argument to maybe not take drop augury, but the other ones are so good compared to like getting some universal ladders or something like that, or a blast shield, or setting up razor wire. I think I would always take them. And then designer commentary. Now this is the newest edition of the book. It's 1 page, but it's advice on how to play the team, on how the pieces go together. In the case of the Aquilons, they're a tactical shooting team, and they have unparalleled ability to descend into the kill zone mid-battle and are best when engaging early. So they're all about doing alpha strikes. It gives you a bit of, each of these paragraphs is a bit on each of the individual specialists and how to use them. And then sort of like a overview at the end. The Tempestor Aquilons are a team with a unique but identifiable premise. Drop in and engage fast, master this early, and you'll discover the extra layer of potential beneath as you flex your approach, calling on different objectives and tactics at your disposal to ensure the enemy is incapacitated and objectives are in your hands. So really good to have designer's notes in here, because what this does is it's the internet advice on people after they've played the game, except you get it up front in the actual list for the group. And I think that's a really nice add-on to this to give you like some play advice overall at the end of the section. So let's talk about Stingwings. These are very unique in that they have like a management mechanic baked in. So again, you're gonna get 10 models. You have to take the strain leader and the oversight drone. So you have to make these 2 guys. You really do need them though. The Vespid Stingwing strain leader, his big difference is he can operate without having to use communion points. He's got a helmet on where the Tau Firecasts are telling him what to do and why. The oversight drone is going to give you an additional point to spend every turn to make sure that these guys don't operate instinctively. And then your 8 different Stingwings, again, no problem building these guys. You can build all the specialists easily. You get the Long Sting, which is the sniper, the Shade Strain, which is the guy in the stealth armor, the Sky Blast, which is the grenade launcher, which leaves behind like neutron radiation, and the Swarm Guard, which is your flamethrower dude who can fly over and burn dudes in a line. Then you get your Warriors, of which you're going to be able to take, you know, the maximum of 3 because you only get 10 models here. You would never drop one of the specialists, I don't think, for a Warrior. You can take Recon and Seek and Destroy as your 2 missions, just like this other team. Now, your faction special rules are very interesting. The first one is Neutron Charge. If you make a fly move, so if you just make a reposition during the turn, you got 2 APL, you get Piercing 1 until the end of the turning point. So as long as you move before you fire, nobody ever gets 3 defense dice against you unless they're somehow immune to piercing. It's really, really cool. And it applies to all neutron guns. So neutron blaster, neutron grenade launcher, etc. The only thing it doesn't apply to in this list is the flamethrower. So the Swarm Guard, he has a flamer. That is the only thing in here that doesn't have neutron in the name, including the neutron grenades. And then you got Communion. So Communion is probably the most important rule in this book. In this team, and it's the fact that you don't have unless you spend a communion point. Basically, unless the Tau tell these guys what to do, they can only attack the closest model within 8 inches. So you really have to reposition a lot to keep models within 8 and close to know who you're going to be able to fire at. Otherwise, they're just acting instinctively because they don't have brains. They're bugs. They're being controlled by pheromones and stuff. Whenever a Vespid Stingwing is performing a shoot action, it can only target the closest enemy operative within 8. Excluding enemy operatives within control range of other friendly Stingwings. So like they can't shoot into combat. Unless you spend a communion point. For weapons with Blast and Torrent, only the initial model has to be picked this way. Whenever they perform a charge, it must finish the action within control range of the close enemy operative unless you do a communion point. Whenever they perform a pickup action, you have to spend a communion point to do it. Or a mission action. So like if you're going to flip an objective in approved ops game. And whenever they're shooting, you can spend 1 and only 1 of your community points to reroll an attack dice. You can basically use them like balanced points or free rerolls. So, and you're only going to get a limited number of communion points per turn. So you get D3 at the start of every round, plus 1 for your oversight drone. Now your commander, your leader, the strain leader, his helmet always spends a communion point for free. So he's always able to do what you want all the time, but with 10 models, and D3 plus 1, only half your team initially is going to be able to make actions that aren't at the closest thing within 8. And they just can't do it otherwise. You just can't shoot anything. So that's an important, and you also can't do mission actions. So you have a budget of these things that you need to do every round. Now there is equipment that can offset this a little bit and make it a little bit easier to manage. And again, that's why I think with the Vespids and the Aquilons, they're like bespoke equipment you just kind of have to take because it just makes the team way better. Their last special rule is fly. Whenever you move one of these models with a reposition or a dash, anytime it moves for any reason, you just pick it up and place it within its stat. So with the base movement of 6 on all these models, and there's no horizontal movement ever measured. So it's just, you can put them up on terrain anywhere you want, and they don't move through models because they're placed. They just get placed wherever you want within 6. The fly rule is incredibly powerful and means that terrain is almost irrelevant to these guys. You just pick them up and put them down where you want them to be. It must be set up in a location to be placed. Unless it's the charge action, it cannot be set up within control range of the enemy. And in a kill zone that uses close quarters rules like Galadark, you can't measure this through a wall. So other than that, you're fine. But you can fly through like hatchways. So these are the big core rules that make these guys hard to control. The trade-off is, individually, they're incredibly powerful, and we'll get to that in a second. Their turn-long ploys are hardened exoskeleton. If you do a normal damage of 4 or more, so base damage of more or more, you're -1 damage for anyone targeting a Stingwing. The oversight drone is excluded. Aerial agility, whenever someone does normal damage to you, if it moved or is reacting, so if it made a move action first, basically these guys are like T-Rexes. These guys key off of motion. Any normal damage, it has a 5+ save again. So every time it does a normal damage dice to you, so like let's say it's 3-4 damage, every 3 that you would apply, there's a 5+ shrug, because if you're moving, they can sense you better. And then airborne predators, whenever you fly, you also have balanced for the turn. So you get to reroll a single attack dice. That would go with neutron charge as well, so you'll be piercing 1 and balanced for the whole turn. And then finally, sting, your claws get lethal 5+ and shock for the whole turn. So everybody's melee attacks go up because you like unleash your stingers. And then during the turn, you can have Ocelot. Use this firefight ploy when a friendly Vespid Stingwing performs a shoot action during an activation in which it used fly. Until that action, it's considered to be on a vantage point and 3 inches higher. So you can just, you get the benefits of vantage terrain. And when it's selecting a valid target, that would mean that it would also ignore conceal against models that are behind light terrain, and would be able to be picking them as a valid target. Darting flight, you can add D3 to your movement for a reposition, but you can't shoot or fight afterwards. Neutron overload, sorry. Use this friendly ploy when you do a crit success from a Vespid Stingwing's neutron weapon. If you're within 4 inches, you do D3 additional damage for a crit. That's amazing. So like all your crits turn into crit plus D3. And then Vicious Demon, same for your stings. Crit successes in melee would be D3 additional damage. So if you really need to finish someone off with the first hit and you get a crit, you could do an additional D3 for a command point. Huge damage I put on these guys that you can boost up like crazy. Let's talk about why. Most of them have neutron blasters. Everything that's neutron in this entire list is devastating, which means all your crits, like they all do flat damage, so like 3-3 or 4-4. They've all got critical, devastating. So the radiation on these guns just goes right through armor. So potentially you could just do flat 8 damage if you get 4 crits with the neutron blaster. Doesn't have a range reduction. It's just a crazy radiation gun. And remember, as long as you move first, they're always piercing. So you're only ever getting 2 defense dice against it. Hits on 3s, 3-3 damage, devastating 2. The basic warrior is going to have 9 wounds. It's going to be on 4s instead of on 3s, but still devastating 2. The claws are 3 attacks, 4+, 3-4 damage. So they hit like Space Marines. Basic APL is 2, move 6 inches, 5+ save. So not super armory, but remember, again, you can have a turn-long ploy that gives you a 5+ save against normal damage. But they got lots of wounds, 9 wounds. The basic guys have warrior instincts. When you're not spending communion points to attack with them, if they're with an 8 of somebody, the neutron blaster has accurate for the rest of that sequence. So as long as you're not trying to commune with them and you're just shoving the warriors into close range combat, they have to attack the closest thing. They get accurate, they probably also get piercing, and their guns are incredibly dangerous. So your strength leader, he only has 2 APL, and he's exactly like the basic Stingwing, except when he's in his communion helm, he doesn't have to spend any communion points. When selecting operatives for the battle, select 1 Stingwing strategy ploy. Whenever this operative is in the kill zone or not within control range of the enemy, that ploy costs 0 CPs. This is an interesting one. Basically, as long as he's alive, he gets one of these for free for the whole game, which is amazing. So like you could just always be aerial agility, which is what I would do. Always have a 5+ save against normal damage if someone moves. And then that's it. He gets an extra wound. Oversight drone, it's 2+ saves, so it's super like, it's kind of like the training drones in Star Wars. It just like gets out of the way really fast, but only has 5 wounds. It's movement 8 though, and only has a melee attack. So 3 attacks, 5+, 1-2 damage. It can only make aerial guidance, charge, dash, fallback, fight, or reposition orders. Whenever determining control of objective, it's only 1 APL. Whenever you're turning visible from it, you use the drone body as the head. And whenever it has a conceal order and is in cover, it cannot be selected as a valid target, period. End statement. So you never take it out of conceal. And it takes precedence over all other rules like vantage terrain. And whenever someone's shooting it, ignore the piercing weapon rule. It's just super hard to hit. The idea here is you want to make it super survivable so that you can't get rid of your free communion point every game, every turn. And then it can support until the end of the operative's next activation for 1 APL. Whenever another friendly Vespid Stingwing operative is visible and within 6 of this model and it's shooting an enemy operative visible to it, they get saturates and no retaining dice for cover saves. This has no effect while this operative is in control range of an enemy operative. So it just gives you saturate by standing around. And then we get our specialists. We get the Long Sting, the Shade Strain, the Sky Blast, the Swarm Guard. The Long Sting has a sniper rifle. So it gets devastating to a neutron fragment. Whenever you do a crit to somebody, they get a neutron fragment token. During the strategy phase, it does D3 damage for every fragment it has. So if you can tag a space with a bunch of these, think of it like the Halo little pink crystal gun. Every one of the little fragments blows up over time. And you don't remove them. They just keep killing you for D3 damage. Its rail rifle never gets silent though, so you always have to be engaging. If you're aiming it, it's only able to make a dash though, but it can still fly. Lethal 5+ and neutron fragment. If it's moving, it's going to have only hit on 4s and still get the neutron damage stuff. It just loses the lethal. The Shade Strain's neat because he is a stealth suit, but also a bug. He's going to have a neutron sting. It's a pistol version of the main gun, so it's only got a range of 8 inches. Neutron grenade, once use per game. Range 6 inches, blast 2, devastating 2, limited 1, and saturate, so no cover bonus retained save dice. And he's got a Ghost Rig. While he has a Conceal Order, your opponent cannot select this as a valid target unless it's within 6. Period. I just turn invisible. Note this rule has no effect against weapons that don't select it as a target, so like if you're blasting into it by something nearby, you can still hit it. And then Camouflage, whenever an operative is shooting this operative, ignore the piercing weapon rule, and all cover saves are counted as crit successes. So basically all your cover saves turn into 6s. This is going to also apply to any that you get for cover. Or this is the ones you get for cover. This rule has no effect if the operative is selected as not a valid target, like with blast weapons and stuff like that. The Sky Blast, he has a neutron grenade launcher, so it's blast 2 inches, devastating 2, and neutron bombardment. Place 1 neutron fallout marker within the primary control target's control range, so you leave a little marker behind afterwards. The neutron fallout is during enemy operative's activation. As soon as it's within 2 of one of the neutron markers, take D3 damage. So you can like saturate the area, and remember these guys aren't affected by it, and make even just like an objective cause damage to things around it. The Sky Blast is incredibly powerful. And then the Swarm Guard, he's got a flamer. He has a thing called Sky Torch. An operative can use this weapon during an activation which you perform the reposition action with Fly. If it does, do not select a valid target. Instead, shoot against every operative within its torch zone. And the torch zone is you place a 28 mil torch marker, which you get in this box, and then you move it in its line. It just does an attack against all of them with Sky Torch. And it's a flamer, so it's going to be 2+, 3/3 damage with 4 attacks. Yeah, crazy. Or you can just fire it like a normal flamer with an 8 and get Saturate and Torrent 2. And that's the Warriors. So like huge damage output on this team, really, really dangerous. And then their faction equipment, you would just literally always take. So first it's Neural Stimulant. During the ready step of every strategy phase, roll 2, pick the highest for your D3s to see how many communion points you get. Yep, just 2, pick the highest +1. So you're always gonna get, as long as you can roll 3+ on one of those 2 dice, you're getting 3, because you're getting the communion point from the boss, plus the 1 for your free shield. The Convergent Stimulant, your whole team once per turn can do a pickup marker or mission action without spending a communion point. So it's effectively another free communion point as long as you're pushing buttons or picking up items. Accelerant Stimulant, +1 inch to your movement as long as you're flying, dashing, or charging. Yeah, so you can dash 4 now, you can charge 9, and you can make a basic move 1 inch further away. So yeah, whenever you're doing a charge or dash action, move additional inch. So very handy for the reposition, especially for things like the Long Sting, because his base movement then will become 4 whenever he's doing his aimed shots. And then Aggression Stimulant, you get ceaseless on your melee weapons whenever you're fighting, as long as you're not the Oversight Drone. There's no reason not to take all 4 of those. They all affect the whole team, especially Neurostimulant. You would always take Neurostimulant every single time. And Convergence. And then it gives you free mission actions. Yeah, absolutely. And the designer commentary is basically telling you how to manage all of those special abilities and get the most out of your team, because they're hard to control, but their damage output is insane, especially having 10 models. Then we get a mission pack. And the mission pack is the Volcus Airborne Assault Mission Pack. So it's how do you do a chain campaign? So it's basically like a narrative structure for playing these in order, 1A, 2A, or 2B, depending on who wins, and then 3A, B, or C, depending on who won that second one. It's a little tree campaign, and the rules for doing so. So how you set up the mission, how you set up all of the terrain that's in this box set, and then the universal equipment rules. So these are the universal equipment pieces that can be picked by anybody, so any team can take these, and there's miniatures for them in this box on the sprue. I really like these. Ammo cache lets you resupply your ammo, so it's going to give you balanced, basically. You can reroll one of your attack dice. Razor wire, it's another piece of terrain that you'd set up before you set up your teams, and it makes things harder to move nearby. They get tangled in it. Comms equipment lets you do support. Mines, once per battle, you can place a mine marker. You can take D3 plus 3 damage if you come within 2 inches of it. Light barricades, these are the old barricade setups. They're the exact same as they were before. They give you light cover. A heavy barricade, it's a heavy terrain piece, so it's basically the same as this barricade, except with the heavy trait, so you can conceal behind it and not lose your visibility, like protection from vantage. Ladders, I don't see these as being super useful in this terrain. You basically only spend 2 inches to go up a vertical distance that has a ladder next to it, but on the Beta Decima terrain set in particular, these are going to be really handy. And then portable barricade, I love this one. For an action, you can pick up light cover and move it with you. So it's kind of like the light barricades here, but a person can carry it around. It's a little like riot shield for fighting with. Then you get your smoke grenades, stun grenades, and explosive grenades. These are the ones you have unlimited of on the Grenadier for the drop troops. And yeah, these are gonna give like blocking line of sight. Stun grenades reduce APL on somebody within 6 inches, and it's just additional attack stats. But you can take a mix of them, which I like. You can take 2 smoke, or a smoke and a stun, or 2 stun. Take 2 frag, or 2 crack, or 1 of each. You get a little more options with grenades this time around in this edition, and I really like that because it means that they're just more versatile. So utility or explosive, whichever one you want to take, is another equipment point. Yeah. And that's it. That's our book. So the Hivestorm Dossier, what do I think? I like that it's concise. I like that it keeps the teams in one place. The universal equipment being printed in here is handy. I expect they're probably going to print it in every single one of these because it's not in the core book. There's no rules for universal equipment in here. So they're adding this, I think, just as like a additional addendum. It is also in every single one of these card packs when you'll see the reviews for these later on. I like that there's a narrative mission structure in here. They are head-to-head missions. There's nothing for joint operations or multiplayer ops. They're a core feature of this core book. Maybe that'll be just an additional thing by itself that comes out later on in the release structure for this edition of the game. You could have given me a little story. You could have given me a little like, hey, here's 3 missions for the Tempestor's Aquilons breaking into and fighting against these NPO Vespids or vice versa, like, and enter the Hive thing. This book is it's 72 pages. I think if you added 8 more pages and gave me some joint operation stuff in here, this would have more value to me. It feels more like a Codex now than it did, and there's nothing for Spec Ops in here because Spec Ops doesn't exist. So there's no linked campaign play rules anymore in Kill Team, and that's been removed from these dossiers in general. It does feel a lot more like a 40K Codex, and it feels very tied to the Hivestorm box set. So we don't know what the next release for this is going to look like, whether or not it's going to follow the Beta Decima format where you get 2 teams and a piece of terrain. I do hope that's what happens and we get some cool like bunkers or doors or, like vaults that we get to go into. I would absolutely love to see a ruined vehicle terrain kit in this game. Workshop, please. Or a dropship. Give me like an Aquila Lander style dropship piece of terrain or a crash. Something with a story to it. I feel like there's tons of opportunity for that in the releases going forward. But this does feel more like a 40K Codex than Kill Team ever has before. And that kind of comes back to this approved ops card pack and how that feels more like a little 40K than it ever has before. So my hope is once they've done the next, I'm guessing there's going to be 8, so 3 more box sets to go with whatever this edition of Kill Team is. Once they've finished releasing that, I'm hoping we get some kind of Spec Ops supplement that's more like a D&D adventure, because so far this feels more like a little 40K with a dash narrative thrown in, and they have stripped out the primary component of having your own Kill Team tell its story with the Spec Ops stuff and base build. that stuff's gone. It's been replaced by just a simple, 3-mission tier campaign, which I'll run through and we'll try, but doesn't have kind of the same stakes as like designing your own kill team. So anyway, there it is, the Hivestorm Dossier. This is the second of 3 reviews. Next up, you're going to get to, if you're watching these in order, watch the Approved Ops card pack, which is the mission set, the Leviathan mission deck review, and that's out today. So big thanks for watching. Big thanks for Workshop sending along a copy of Hivestorm. This is the stuff that comes in the Hivestorm box. So we'll finish these reviews up, and then you can check out the other teams that are going to be available and their card packs too. So thanks for watching. We'll see you for more of this. Till then, I'm Ash. Framing.